Guys, the world has gone topsy-turvy. What is happening on the internet? What is happening in the Matrix? Because my head is buzzing. Is yours? Let's have a look at this whole thing with Elon Musk. Afrikaners being in America, the latest things. It just gets more and more bizarre. More and more bizarre. Just have a look.
There is an absolute ruckus going on in South Africa's government right now because the DA Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Solomon Latsi, has put forward kind of like an order, which he says he can do, an order to bend the BEE and transformation rules that govern South Africa's communications sector to allow Starlink, Elon Musk's internet company, into South Africa.
Are you kidding me? Do you mean to tell me, Johan Steenhuisen, do you mean to tell me, Elon Musk, that you two South Africans were exchanging Cooldrinks in the Oval Office? Have you no respect? Guys, do you know what a cool drink is? A cool drink is South African street speak for a bribe. Were they exchanging cool drinks and now they went and got a token black guy? Is that what I'm hearing? Am I reading between the lines too much? Like, what? So now using a token black guy from DA, this is my interpretation of it, to... You're using a token black guy to come and undermine the hard won for work of BEE, which is already controversial enough because we don't all agree with the mechanism, though we agree with the principle. Hi, bo. What is going on? It's insane. Right? So we're having arguments about if we should bend it for Starlink. Now, my question is, who raised y'all? Meanwhile, stateside, this rabbit hole, as I've said before, so deep it has a water slide in it. It's got a whole amusement park. The whole of Gold Reef City is down there. What's happening in America? Okay, I'm just going to give you a hint by this wonderful YouTuber, Reese Waters, to give you an American perspective. It's like,
that's America first. Bankrupt the people that live here, work here, and pay taxes here. So you can go ahead and make money off of their desperation and their, I don't know, their stupidity for voting for your administration.
I just want to see the argument that happened in his head before he went with stupidity. You know, because he was like, no, don't do it. They need to hear it. We going with stupidity. You're doing a public service by going with stupidity. Let them have it.
guys, it gets insane.
Hey, shout out to all of the subscribers and members here on the channel. Don't forget to like the video and share if you can. My name is Reese Waters, and this is Who Raised Y'all, where we highlight those unique individuals going above and beyond to make society worse.
Yep, Who Raised Y'all? I would say that's the DA. If they and Elon Musk had gone and exchanged cool drinks in the Oval Office, it's one thing for Donald Trump to disrespect the Oval Office. It's quite another for us as South Africans to go into their nation and do these shady deals and use people's whole countries, our own and the United States, as a fleshlight, as a dildo. Okay, people's countries and people's livelihoods are not something for you to masturbate over. And while I am worried about the South African side, I am equally and perhaps even more concerned about stateside, considering this rabbit hole.
I rock with MAGA because MAGA rocks with me. MAGA holds me down. They're always encouraging me. They're always speaking life into me. And they're the ones who are most likely to repost. They're the ones who are most likely to click the link in my bio and donate to me.
You know, the kinds of people you'll see asking to speak to the manager at the pearly gates.
I want to talk to the manager.
Hey, MAGA. I know. Feels like we're here every week on Who Raised Y'all, but these are things that you need to hear. Now, you remember last week how y'all were keying it about the South Africans arriving on American shores?
And just like that, folks, the liberal left is pissed. They are not happy. They are now against immigration into this country. Refugees. The same folks that want to come here to have a better life and to settle down and be fast-tracked into becoming U.S. citizens and to contribute honorably into this country. They show up with American flags and with...
Baby, they couldn't contribute honorably in their own country when they were given the Disneyland version of that country. And better lives? What better life do you have than the average white South African? Because South Africa is really just, in many ways, just America with better weather. Ask anybody who's lived in both countries.
Gratitude and with the hopes of living out the American dream. And here we are, we have Americans that are not accepting of these folks. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, talking about shame, I'm going to say something that embarrasses white people around the world, and they don't like it whether or not they're racist. Do you know that during colonial days, they vetted white people depending on which colony they would go to? The ones who ended up being white South Africans were basically like your Ivy League. They weren't going to give the best colony with the best animals, because remember, hunting was a thing. South Africa was a hunting mecca. And with all the diamonds and all the gold and the busiest coastline for slavery, they weren't going to give that to just anybody. Okay? They gave it to the boys' club. They were vetted for hundreds of years. Little known fact. So if you ended up in a different colony, it is a sign of how you were perceived by white supremacy and whiteness, which didn't just believe in racism, it also believed that every man had its place and every animal. It was something called the Great Chain of Being in the Middle Ages even, where they believed that everything had its place. You had God at the head and his four categories of angels, and in a reflection of that was everything in the universe. So you have the astrological order, the sun at the head, and the four categories of planets that they were aware of. You had the human being with his head and his four limbs, if you look at that image by Michelangelo. You had the king as the representative of God and the four classes of men, which you still see today. You had the kingdom of flowers, the rose as the head and all the four classes of flowers. You had in trees the oak as the head and the four classes of trees. Animals, lions at the head and the four classes of animals. It went on and on and on. This is the lens through which they saw the world, and they saw all people through this lens. And they also saw, even hell with Satan at the head and the four classes of fallen angels as, and they all had their various hierarchies, but even within white people. And so if you ended up in a different colony over those 100 years, it's a reflection of how they saw you. If you were their favorite, okay, aristocrats would stay there, or whatever, and they needed their serfs and peasants, whatever. But if you were their favorite as a white person, you would have ended up in South Africa. Sorry.
Which admittedly was weird at the time. I'll be perfectly honest. I've never seen anybody celebrate more dudes in the club. I think you just brought more dudes in the club and thought that it was a flex. Like I don't understand how having 50 people in the bread line as opposed to 40 makes you more likely to get the spoils. But I realize math has never been your strong suit, or else you would have realized that billionaires are not in your class. But remember all that fun you was having last week? Well, look, here's a little something you need to hear.
Wondering where all these South Africans are gonna go? Don't worry. They already had a plan in place, and it was called Acre Trader. That's right. They already took the farmland from farmers who were failing. As a matter of fact, they have about 40,000 acres of farmland that they took from American farmers because they wouldn't give them subsidies. Acre Trader is an American real estate investment company that specializes in farmland. It says here that the company aims to increase investor access to real estate assets and provides capitals to farmers and growers to expand their business. But what they failed to leave out here is that the first investor into Acre Trader was none other than J.D. Vance. You know J.D. Vance, the one who was in charge of the White House with the president who is cutting all the subsidies to the farmers? Yeah, that J.D. Vance. And what they also failed to mention is the fact that the people who were investing, yeah, they were South Africaners. And guess who?
And here, so a translation for those who might not get it. In some quarters of the American mind, alarm bells are going off. To oversimplify, is it possible now that South Africans are actually stealing American land? What? What? But don't take my word for it. I'll put a link to the script in the description from this video and listen to all the different voices saying this. But let me tell those Americans from a South African perspective, if they are doing this, as I understand this business model, it is based on a business model called crowd farming, which I've spoken about before on my channel, which in its essence was the idea by a black Xhosa South African who got the idea while visiting Lesotho, another African country. And he got the idea from their culture. And we are using that model here in South Africa in a whole different way, not to disenfranchise, but to empower, right? The rabbit hole goes deep. So go, take an off ramp to Ntutuko Shezi actually trying to empower us as a nation, right? But then somewhere along the way, a white Afrikaner must have met him, if I connect the dots, and gone right back onto this white supremacist highway, and somehow now Americans are collateral damage? What? Okay, we'll listen to a little bit more of this video, and yeah.
Who just came to America to go on these farms? That's right.
Meanwhile, back at the southern ranch down here in South Africa, we are now talking about what? We are talking about basically overthrowing our black economic empowerment laws.
To allow Starlink, Elon Musk's internet company, into South Africa. It is a massive fight in South Africa's parliament. In fact, Solimalatsi's deputy, Kusela Diko of the ANC, is openly dragging him on Twitter. This is a real big one and is set to divide opinion because Elon Musk is so divisive, because bending BEE laws for anybody, but particularly for a white man who has spent the last few years of his life absolutely bashing South Africa's public reputation, spreading disinformation, fake news, and nonsense about South Africa, and actively trying to undermine and meddle with South Africa's democratically elected government to bend the rules for him seems wild. But there are also many case studies in more than a dozen.
Guys, we'll get to the South African perspective in a minute. Let's just go back. I don't even know what to do. Are you guys connecting these dots? We've got a small group of Afrikaner refugees playing the US of A with a small group of white supremacist Americans colluding, using black ideas to disenfranchise Americans of all colors. What? What?
I know. It's harsh, isn't it? Yeah. To find out. This is like having them train your replacement at work, which is a circumstance you're probably used to. So they felt like you had experience in this regard, where you could train up the South Africans for how to be good Americans. Huh? What's that? Oh, you don't trust her. You want to hear from somebody white?
Farmers for Trump. Those rich, white, South African farmers. They want to thank you. They want to thank you for your tax dollars and for giving up your federal subsidies that you get every single year to grow your crops. They want to thank you that you lost out on billions of dollars on behalf of these rich, white, South African farmers who were oppressed because their land was taken away, because they stole in the first place. These farmers, they want to thank you, you farmers and you cattle ranchers. We know that you're never getting that business back.
Guys, right now all we can do is joke and laugh, but it's actually not that funny. It's not that funny. I don't like this trend of seeing Americans disenfranchised. by anybody who is abusing South Africa. It's not the first time this has happened. It's not the first time it's been white people, whether it's white Americans in South Africa scamming Americans out of money, whatever the case is. But honestly, racism is so efficient that it'll use your ignorance against you. And the thing is, I hope this is as bad as it gets. I hope it doesn't get any worse, because if I look at the insidious nature of the South African racist mind, shaking hands with the American racist mind and its efficiency for violence, I hope my fears are wrong. And I'm not going to talk about it yet because I don't quite want to fearmonger. But that is a recipe for absolute disaster. And I hope enough voices in America are listening.
Hearts. Thank you.
What? That ain't good enough? Oh, it's gotta be a white man. You've been talking to Darren Beatty, haven't you?
Hey, I like that comment. I agree with it. This is the first time I can think of to where there's not a huge outpouring to want to support farmers. And it's because of how they voted. They voted to create this situation that we saw in this original video. And if you're just tuning in, you might want to click on the comment to hear about the struggles of this Trump voting farmer. But the golden age of America, Trump wants to return to.
And here is the irony. The whole white genocide myth started because two game farmers, not actual farmers of, cows or farm animals, game farmers, people who farm game animals, right? Such as what you guys might call deer, such as antelope, with springboks and a bontebok and blesbok and steenbok and all kinds of antelope. People who farm this stuff, aka places where you go game farming and hunting. Okay, so this kind of thing, right? You can just go there, you could hunt, you could turn the meat into South African beef jerky called biltong. Those two guys didn't pay their taxes, and the government was like, hey guys, where's your taxes? Guys, seriously, your taxes. Now, how long do you not have to pay taxes until a lazy government like ours goes and takes your farm and goes, sorry, but guys, you didn't pay taxes? So then they started the whole white genocide myth, and muddied the waters because we have a crime crisis. It is so insane.
AcreTrader is just one of many companies launched in the past decade that facilitate the sale of farmland, which has increasingly become a staple in investor portfolios. Recently, it was revealed that this includes the investment portfolio of vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance, a Republican senator from Ohio. Yeah, it hurts, don't it? Hey, look, y'all the ones that decided that J.D. Vance was trustworthy.
So they're literally implementing crowd farming, where it's kind of like we all get to invest in little bits of farms without farming, right? But who came up with crowd farming? Ntuthuko Shezi. And you don't have to take my word for it. Go and watch Ntuthuko Shezi's TED Talk. This is insane. Now, what's the issue with BEE in South Africa? Okay, why is Elon Musk putting his 2 cents in? Let's listen.
Revolutionized internet access in many parts of the world with its constellation of low Earth orbit satellites offering high-speed, low-latency internet. But it's still not available in South Africa. So I'm here to unpack to you the why. Yes, it's got government involved, but let me explain. In fact, before I even get there, just recently, Zimbabwe became the 8th African country to license Starlink to provide satellite internet services in a deal involving one of President Emmerson Mnangagwa's close associates, Tricky. President Mnangagwa made the announcement around the 25th of May this year, as he revealed that Starlink would partner with a local company, IMC Communications. The company is owned by Wicknell Chivayo, who is regularly seen with the president. However, Starlink will only be accessible through Chivayo's company, which received the licensing rights from the Postal Telecommunications Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe. This information is key for you to understand. Starlink has local partners in Zimbabwe. Keep that in mind as this video progresses. So what is Starlink? Starlink is a constellation of thousands of low Earth orbit satellites that are significantly closer to Earth.
Okay, so just to oh, by the way, I'm glad a car track advert came up just to highlight how much crime there is in South Africa. This is a car tracker. Okay, it literally is what we put in our cars to stop us from being hijacked. But let's connect the dots here. A whole bunch of rich people are making shady deals and using the highest governments in both South Africa and America to their own advantage, and it doesn't matter who's collateral damage. They will use whatever narratives they want, such as a white genocide, and they will throw anybody under the bus, whether that person is Latino, whether they're white, whether they're Muslim, as long as you're not in their group chat. Okay, and a whole bunch of billionaires are making deals in the Oval Office, in the Houses of Parliament in South Africa. It's reached a government level. Two of the most historically racist countries were very vulnerable to narratives about race. Two countries that many people dream of moving to as a land of milk and honey, that many people fetishize, that many people think are better than they are in some ways. Okay. Were primed by decades-long world narratives to be sensitive to people taking advantage, and the people who best understand those two countries are raking it in. I wonder if, gosh, why should I fight it? Maybe I should join. I'll make billions. Fuck. Guys, we've reached the realms of the bizarre. We've reached the realms of the ridiculous.
Has been launching these into orbit for many years at a much faster and cheaper rate due to him having a technological advantage through his space company. The proximity of these low Earth orbit satellites translates into faster speeds compared to traditional satellite internet. Starlink also offers significantly faster download and upload speeds, potentially reaching well over 100 megabits per second.
Bruh, say what you want. You're gonna combine the South African government and Elon Musk? That stuff's going to be offline very soon. Please.
It allows for smoother video conferencing, online gaming, and real-time applications to run faster than from other links. Starlink also offers a wider coverage. The sheer number of Starlink satellites in orbit promises broader internet access reaching remote areas often underserved by traditional terrestrial infrastructure. However, South Africa, despite its significant need for improved internet connectivity, remains absent from Starlink's operational map, but Zimbabwe is. Many want to make it a complex issue, but it's actually really simple. I'll explain. The most significant hurdle for Starlink in South Africa is the lack of a proper operating license from the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA, the National Telecommunications Regulator. They require all companies offering satellite internet services to acquire a license in the country. While Starlink has expressed interest in entering the South African market, it hasn't formally applied for a license as of June 2024, or even the making of this video. But here's where things get even more interesting. ICASA has cautioned companies against importing and selling Starlink user terminals. They've even called it flat out illegal. Some people have been known to go across the border into countries that have Starlink, like Mozambique, and then they come back into South Africa, install these, and use them illegally. Starlink, on the other hand, claims that they are abiding by international regulations, and they've accused South African resellers of violating its terms of service and copyrights by using Starlink logos to market unauthorized resales in the country and even in neighboring countries. This creates a catch-22 situation. Starlink can't operate in South Africa without a license, but ICASA may not issue one until Starlink complies with local regulations regarding resellers and other operational aspects. One of those operational aspects is BEE.
This is key. This part is key. If you don't know what BEE is, Black Economic Empowerment, he's going to explain it. We need 30% black ownership in a country where we've got 80% of the population being black and being previously incredibly disenfranchised and disadvantaged. Okay? Because, like many people have said, I believe 70% of private land, that's not government land, but private land, is owned by white hands. And so South Africans are very keen across the board to create some kind of equality, and it's something we strive for daily. But of course, Elon Musk is above the law, because Elon Musk was born in apartheid and left just as Nelson Mandela was coming out of prison, and he's used to being above the law. You can see how he's playing with America like that. Doesn't have any respect for anybody. And all of these buddies don't have respect for you, whether you voted for Trump or you're MAGA or whatever. They don't care. Because if they see something like toddlers, mine, and they'll find a way to use their brilliance, okay, to create structures which will make it yours. I mean, will make it theirs. Make it mine. Because they're above the law, so they'll just find a loophole. Okay, they won't use that smarts to build a country or build any kind of community. That's not on their agenda. Push comes to shove, it's them first.
Triple BEE, or broad-based Black economic empowerment, is a policy that all companies operating in South Africa must adhere to. This policy aims to redress historical economic inequalities by requiring companies operating in South Africa to have a certain percentage of ownership or management positions held by Black individuals. Generally, this is around 30% at a minimum. While the exact details of the Starlink's potential non-compliance with Triple BEE.
To break it down, hey, our law says you gotta have a couple of Black investors, and Elon Musk is basically saying no. Okay. No. Instead, what I'm gonna do is create a myth of a white genocide. And instead, what my buddies are gonna do while you guys aren't looking is buy American farms that are struggling and give it to said white buddies. That's what this boils down to. Okay? Thank you for joining. This has been Nuance with Nikki, the nitty gritty. Even if it's shitty, don't take my word for it. I'll give you all of these links in the description at a later stage. And thanks for joining.